I want you to record 3 things and put them in the comments. The first one is your grip strength. Now you can do this by buying some kind of machine online that when you squeeze it, you squeeze the lever, it'll tell you how strong your grip strength is. I also want you to measure your vertical jump height, and you can do that by using some kind of tape measure, or usually in like gyms, they have this thing on the wall that has like, it measures the height in inches. So when you go and jump, you can just touch your highest height on there, and then it'll tell you how high you've jumped. And the third is your sprint speed. So you can do that by measuring out a certain distance. Maybe it's 50 meters, maybe it's 100 meters, maybe you'll do it in yards. And then you run that distance, and then based off of the number of seconds that takes you to run that, you can do the equation where, speed is like distance divided by time, and then you get some kind of result. It might be in miles per hour, it might be in kilometers per hour, but I want you to record all 3 of those things. Your grip strength, either in kilograms or pounds, your jump height, either in inches or centimeters, and your sprint speed. And I want you to record all 3 of those, and I want you to put them in the comments, right? And we'll see who gets the highest, right? And whoever gets the highest, I don't know, good for you. I don't have any prizes to give out or anything. I just want to see where other guys are at in terms of that. But the reason I say that is because those 3 are some of the best ways to gauge your overall fitness, your overall physical health, right? And that's ultimately part of what this video is going to be about today, because today we're going to be talking about the warrior archetype as described in the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. So today I'm going to show you how to reclaim your full potential as a man through the lens of that warrior archetype. Now, what is a warrior? Well, a warrior, in the sense of the book, is someone who defends the value that he's already generated for himself by the king archetype, right? And we've already talked about the king to an extent already. He's the archetype that generates value, who produces more than he consumes, whether that's through your job or within your family or within your friend group. You're giving value to other people and you're working hard at that, or even your YouTube channel, right? Or maybe you're self-employed and you have your own business, especially that where you're working for yourself and you're generating your own value, right? You're always producing more than you consume. So the idea is that once you have the king figured out, then you can move on to the warrior. Once you have your kingdom, you can work on defending it, right? Because some disabled king who can't even defend his kingdom, who isn't capable of fighting anyone, he's basically useless. If he doesn't have an army, if he doesn't have any gates around his castle, if he doesn't have any watchtowers, any fences, any kind of boundaries on his kingdom, he's going to lose it, right? He's going to lose it to some kind of barbarians. So that's where the importance of the warrior archetype comes in, where it's developed when you have to realize as a man that nobody's going to come and save you, that nobody's going to come and defend you. Nobody's going to go to the gym for you, right? So like I was saying, the warrior is awakened within a man when he realizes that only he can preserve his mental and physical well-being, right? There's no police that's going to come and arrest people and punish people and stop people when they're going to try and steal all of your belongings and all of your well-being from you. There's only certain laws that can protect you, and those laws are only effective when they're noticed and when they're enforced, right? So really, you just got to take responsibility for yourself. It's a very basic principle. You can develop your warrior archetype by developing your physical and your mental health, basically. So some examples of that is obviously, reading books, watching courses, just educating yourself on different and very useful topics, such as, health, right? Taking steps to improve your mental health, cold showering, meditating, no fap, all of these stereotypical self-improvement stuff that, while it is kind of cliche, it does help, and it is the basic building block for your mental well-being. And to actually live happily and securely within your own body. And there's also the physical component of that. So what I do is I hit the gym every day. I log all of my food. I used to wear a watch where it tracked all my physical activity, but it broke, and I'm trying to get that replaced. So that's something I'm aiming to do. You should also be training some kind of martial art. If you aren't, you're pretty much at a disadvantage to a guy who is, a guy who could just beat you up anytime he wanted to. Because let's be honest, if you have a gun on you, that's not effective at close range. Also, it's not legal in most places. So that all goes to say that you have to be able to defend yourself with your own body and also with weapons as well to be a complete man. This may sound extreme, this may sound kind of unnecessary, but let's be honest, it's only getting tougher out there in the world, and you're gonna need these essential skills sooner or later, right? Not to sound fear-mongering or like some kind of conspiracy theorist, but the apocalypse is definitely coming in some capacity. Civil war stirring up in America. That's what the predictions are. China might invade Taiwan within, I don't know, next year, possibly in November when the next U.S. election happens and a war breaks out because either Trump or his opponent won, and the other side isn't going to accept that the other side won, and they're going to start a war. That's pretty much guaranteed to happen. Just watch it happen. I'm calling it right now. So, besides that goes to say that you need to know how to defend yourself once the support structure that is Western society, if you live in the West, or whatever society you have, when that society comes tumbling down because of some kind of crisis, right? We're in the midst of that. That's starting. It's in process. It's within the process of happening, so you have to know how to deal with that, right? And you deal with that by developing the warrior archetype, by being able to change your circumstances, just like that, at the drop of a hat, in the blink of an eye. You have to be able to leave the country if you need to, without passing these cramped borders. You have to be able to survive on your own within a forest or something, right? You got to be able to forage for food. You got to be able to build a shelter. You got to be able to build a fire from scratch, right? And a lot of guys can't do that, and that might be their downfall one day, right? Because this whole society, this whole bullshit society that we live in, just surrounds us with all kinds of comforts. And let's be honest, we're not really living like human beings are supposed to. And how are human beings supposed to live? Well, let's be honest, we're supposed to be living like hunter-gatherers. We're supposed to be living like these tribes in the Amazon, where they actually respect masculinity and where everyone has their own role, and where even though you're in constant danger of dying every day, you're still going to feel fulfilled, you're still going to have a purposeful life, you're still going to have a tribe, you're still going to be eating much better food than we are now. Let's be honest, you're not going to look like me, you're not going to be fat, right? You're not going to be unattractive because your genetic expression is being optimized because you're eating all this good food, right? Like, what do tribal people eat? Like berries, roots, meat, honey? That's pretty much it. They forage off the land, and let's be honest, they live much better lives than we do in terms of just quality of life, because they have everything that a human needs to live off of, and they have everything that a human needs to be happy, and that's everything that we don't have in Western society. They have community, they have a purposeful life, they have purposeful work, right? They have so much more people that they're exposed to every day, so they're much more mature even from a young age, right? Because in those societies, there's no such thing as a teenager, because basically once a girl or a boy goes through puberty, and they become able to reproduce and they become biologically the same as a man or a woman, they're considered that. There's no in-between. There's no adolescence where they can just goof off. No, they have to take responsibility once they have the physical characteristics of a man or a woman, and that's how people are supposed to live. This may sound controversial if you haven't heard so before, but honestly, that's the way it's been for thousands of years, and by my opinion, that's the way it still should be. And the fact that society has taken all of our responsibility and all of our happiness away from us is just atrocious. And that's just one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to this whole society, this whole infrastructure of Western society coming to an end. And hopefully that'll happen soon, so we can actually start living like human beings are supposed to. So that was a bit of a rant, but how do you survive in that kind of society that's going to develop in the future once Western society comes crashing down and when Gen Alpha are actually adults? Well, you have to develop your warrior archetype, right? You got to be able to defend yourself against other men when this whole country becomes some kind of tribal anarchy. You got to be able to defend your stance, your political stance, or just your opinions in general when someone comes to debate you, and when someone comes to like attack you, right? Like attack you with their words, verbally attack you. You gotta be able to defend yourself as well. You gotta be able to defend your reputation and your moral stance, and that's all part of the warrior archetype as well. And that only comes through studying debate and those kind of things. That's as much as a part of the warrior archetype as like doing heavy squats or something, right? See my squat rack right there. That's as much as a part of the warrior archetype as going to the gym is, and just getting strong and getting lean, and being able to run fast, jump high, fight well, stuff like that. So those are the essential elements of the warrior archetype. Now, let's talk about the mindset of the warrior for a bit, right? A true warrior has impeccable discipline. So, discipline, right? Big topic in today's self-improvement sphere. But discipline is essentially, I think Mike Tyson said it best when he said discipline is doing something that you hate, but acting like you love it, but doing it like you love it, right? That's a big part of life, discipline, right? I had to have discipline when I got up early today, and when I worked out, and when I'm recording this video, and all throughout my day, I have to have discipline, and that's essential for developing any of the four archetypes, right? King, warrior, magician, lover. But it's like super critical. It's the most important when developing the warrior, because training and everything, right? Nobody wants to train. Like 75% of the time, I don't want to train, but I still do it. I think that's what Andrew Tate said, but I mean, it's true for me as well, right? So yeah, discipline, big part of the warrior archetype, and discipline is not a constant thing. Once you get discipline, you can't really maintain it. Discipline is a choice that we make every single day. That's not to say that our discipline doesn't compound on itself, but there's a certain mindset behind discipline that you have to have, right? A certain identity shift that you have to take in order to have discipline. So, we already talked about defending the warrior's identity and everything, right? You have to be able to change your circumstances in the blink of an eye. Let's say I'm in Canada, right? So if, I don't know, America got nuked, or if America broke out in war and they came to invade Canada, let's say. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that if it did happen, if I were a true warrior of a man, if I were a true man, I would be able to get out of the country in some way within, say, 4 hours, right? Not by the major highways, not by the major airlines. I would have to be able to find some way out, or at least be able to go off the grid and find some kind of way to just survive off the land. And if I had a wife or kids and a family, I would have to be able to take them along with me as well and provide for them. It's a big burden, but it's a masculine burden, right? And that's your duty as a man and as a warrior. So another thing, another component of the warrior mindset is that the warrior is aware of his own death, right? He knows that his time here is limited. He knows that every deed that he does could very well be his last, so he acts like that, right? He gives maximal effort, So, like I was saying, the warrior gives maximal effort to his every deed, right? like Deadpool says in that one movie. Also, kind of like the samurai, the way of Dokudo, right? Where they would rather end themselves than be humiliated by having their enemy capture them and be humiliated by their enemy. I'm not saying that everyone has to do that in order to be considered a warrior, but kind of having that code of honor, that code of valor, holding yourself to a certain standard when, especially, you're dealing with your enemies, right? When dealing with people you're in a conflict with. So that's very important to being a warrior. It's just being aware of your own death and just how fleeting your life on this earth is. And there's a big spirituality component to that. I mean, because this whole philosophy of the king, warrior, magician, lover, it's all based in spirituality. It's all based in like ancient lore and myth, right? From like Egyptian and Mayan and Japanese and like all of these different cultures that even though the places that they're based in, right, they're because they're so far apart, right? Because Japan, where these like native people were, is so far from like where the Mayan people were in South America, which is so far from where the African people were. Even though they're so far apart, and because their cultures are so different, the message that their myths kind of communicate is very, very similar. And that's very interesting because like they had no contact, but they believe like such similar things, which I mean maybe it's part of the human condition, but maybe they're discovering like this kind of overarching spiritual truth that kind of reveals something a lot more profound than just, you know, some ignorant tribal people who don't know how electricity works or who don't know that the earth is round, just kind of making up these random stories to base their lives off of, right? So that's very interesting. Some limiting beliefs about achieving the warrior archetype can be that nobody can be, you know, all of these things at once, that nobody can fulfill all these components for the warrior at once. But I can disprove that by giving examples of guys who actually have done all of them. For example, Bruce Lee, right? He's the warrior, right? I think a lot of people look up to him in terms of his prowess within martial arts, how he invented his own school of martial arts. You know, Jeet Kune Do. It's kind of this like ultimate martial art where he practiced all these different martial arts. He studied all these different ways of fighting, and then he kind of took them and synthesized them and made like one like super effective martial art out of them, one style of fighting that took all the good parts of them and is just completely optimized out so that you're basically unstoppable once you've mastered it. And it's like this double S tier martial art, I guess, if you put it on a tier list. Other examples of warriors throughout history, I mean, there's infinite examples of like these old-fashioned soldiers who basically survive through anything, right? I know Jocko Willing talks about these soldiers who have written these books a lot, right? Who have gone through these completely miserable circumstances, perhaps for years, where they're like prisoners of war, and they get all these diseases. They're like downtrodden by these oppressive captors. You know, they're victims of wartime violence. They're victims of war crimes and all these terrible, inhuman situations. But they still make it out at the end because they have like this insane inner strength that comes with having that true warrior energy and having that true drive and that true code of honor that all warriors live by, ultimately. So another limiting belief is that being a warrior is egotistical, that going to the gym, that getting jacked, getting muscular is just egotistical for some reason. And I think that's really an inaccurate and a very kind of feminist look, or like a very modern, postmodern, I guess, analysis of doing stuff like improving yourself, right? And it's just wrong, because if you approach it from a Stoic mindset, if God wants you to be the best man that you can be, that's really all that you can do, because you can control yourself, and you can only control yourself. Then you should make yourself the best man that you could be to, I guess, live out God's intentions for you, live out nature's intentions for you the best that you can, and so you can defend your family and your loved ones and your friends with all of your might, right? Let me take a look at my notes for a sec. Yeah. So he's ultimately, what the warrior is doing is aligning himself with God and serving others. So there's the spiritual aspect again. Another excuse people use is that they don't have time to go to the gym and train their body. Which, I mean, I think you really just can't afford not to go to the gym and read books, right? Because, like I said before, once you have the king figured out, you got to take care of the warrior. Once you have your kingdom, you got to be able to defend your kingdom, right? These are really the only two tasks that you really need to be doing in life. Generating value and then defending that value. And we'll talk about what you got to do later once you figure out the warrior. So yeah, you really just can't afford not to. Some skinny guys, some nerds, will say, well, I don't really have to train my body if my mind is sharp because my brain will always beat a guy's brawn, right? Smarts will always win out at the end of the day. And while there's some truth to that, I mean, you really just can't deny the physical nature of reality and how that's going to screw you over if you don't make your health a priority. Because if I punch you, is it going to hurt? Well, yeah. Could I kill you with my bare hands? I mean, if I was stronger, I probably could. If I wanted something that you had, I probably could. If this was an all-out war and we were both soldiers, some buff guy who knows MMA could absolutely just annihilate some skinny nerd who's making that kind of excuse that he doesn't have to, actually get strong and get fast and work on his physical health instead of just sitting around and, reading science textbooks or whatever these people do all day. But there's the opposite side of the coin where a buff guy will say that he doesn't have to work on his mind. And, well, that's a fallacy too, because how will you be able to defend yourself against trickery, against like these kind of scams that other guys will pull on you? How will you be able to defend yourself against manipulation if you're a dumbass, right? Being really strong isn't going to keep you out of legal trouble, per se, or it isn't going to preserve your reputation. So you got to have some kind of competence, right, within the male hierarchy to defend your status as a warrior. You got to be able to defend your character, right? And those are all intellectual things. So that's why you should improve your mind as well. Other limiting excuses that guys have, other limiting beliefs that guys have. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you have any other excuses for why you shouldn't improve your mind and your body, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to educate you, right? So, a couple actionable steps, a couple things that you can do right now to apply the knowledge within this lengthy video is go get in a fight and lose. Yeah. Pause this video, go walk up to another guy, not another woman, not a woman, right? Because you're a guy, I want you to go up to another guy and I want you to get into some kind of argument or some kind of physical fight with him. I don't care if it's your brother, I don't care if it's your dad, I don't care if it's just some random guy on the street. I'm not saying jump some guy on the street, but say, hey, let's go arm wrestle. Let's go, I don't know, let's go do jujitsu or something. Let's go wrestle. Let's go beat each other up, right? And I want you to intentionally lose. I want you to intentionally, just let your arm fall when you're arm wrestling a guy. I want you to intentionally just go like that and get beat by the guy. I want you to intentionally submit to this guy's hold. I want you to humble yourself enough to be able to lose. And I want you to do that intentionally, at least once, for an actual step. And another thing I want you to do is go hit a CrossFit workout. Go hit something like, I think a Murph is a classic CrossFit workout where you do, I think it's 100 pull-ups in a row, then 200 push-ups in a row, then 300 squats, and then before and after that, you do a 1 mile run. So what the whole workout looks like is a 1 mile run, then 100 pull-ups, then 200 push-ups, then 300 squats, and then you do another 1 mile run. And then see how fast see how fast you can do that, and put your result in the comments. All right. Or just go to a CrossFit gym and just join a class and see what the other guys are doing, and just try and compete against them. Odds are, if you don't do CrossFit a lot, you'll do pretty bad. But I mean, that's experience that you're gonna need, because failure is by far the best teacher. So yeah. Also, go read one nonfiction book about anything. It doesn't have to be about like spirituality or masculinity or any of that stuff. Just read one nonfiction book about something that you're interested in. It could be anything. So just do that. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I don't know, my brain's a bit off today. I'm really not sure why. You might notice that throughout the video, I kind of just let my mind wander and talk about random stuff. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but yeah, I got a bit of brain fog today. I might have to work on my diet to improve that, right? I might have to work on my warrior. I might have to humble myself to work on my warrior in order to improve my mental state. So yeah, that's definitely one of my weaknesses today. So yeah, go like and subscribe, and go check out my other videos on personal responsibility and all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.